Audio 12.3.
Lazy, untidy, grumpy, and prone to taking stupid risks. Teenagers don't exactly have a good reputation. But how fair is this stereotype? And are teenagers the same around the world in different cultures? Or is being a teenager simply a modern Western invention? Here to discuss these questions, we have Sarah Lind, who is something of an expert on the teenage brain, and anthropologist John Holmes. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
John, is being a teenager just a modern Western invention?
Well, basically, yes it is. The word teenager apparently first appeared in print in 1921, and the whole idea has basically grown since then. Before that, we didn't really have teenagers in the same way because young people were expected to start work much earlier. In the Victorian age, most young people would leave school at 10 or 11, if indeed they ever went to school, and join the adult world of work. Nowadays, we separate off teenagers from the adult world by requiring them to go to school until they are around 18. So they spend most of their time with other teenagers, not adults. It's completely different still in many other cultures around the world, where teenagers spend their time with adults, learning from them about how to behave in the world.
So, are you saying that if teenagers spent time with adults instead of other teenagers, all the stereotypical behaviour wouldn't happen?
Yes, pretty much.
But I can remember from when I was at school a quote from Shakespeare about teenagers. Something like, "I would there were no age between 10 and 23. That's 23. And he goes on to list all the bad behaviour this age group takes part in. So, can we really say that teenage behaviour is just a modern invention?
I don't doubt that John has a good point about the impact of changes in society, but there's no doubt that a lot of the behaviour we associate with teenagers is down to biological changes in the brain. Until relatively recently, it used to be thought that the brain had pretty much stopped developing by 12 or 13. But we now know that the brain goes on making new connections until the early 20s. And the last part of the brain to fully develop is the frontal cortex, which is responsible for controlling impulsive behaviour and risk-taking.
So there is a biological basis for stereotypical teenage behaviour?
Absolutely. Teenagers just don't generally have the self-control that we develop later. But as I said, I do think John has a point about being surrounded by other teenagers. How they are judged by people around them is very important to teenagers. So being surrounded by other teenagers all the time may not be the best idea.
Yes, that's right. In fact, research shows that a teenage driver is 5 times more likely to have a car accident when they are driving with one or more friends of the same age in the car. Their desire for their peers to approve of them is more important than any risks they are taking.
Interesting stuff. Are any of the other typical teenage traits down to biology, Sarah?
Well, we all know that teenagers are supposed to have difficulty in getting out of bed in the morning, and that probably has a biological basis too. Their sleep clock actually shifts, and we see this in many other mammals too. Their bodies are programmed to go to bed and get up about 3 to 4 hours later than adults.
That would cause problems getting up for school.
Yes, it does. In fact, some people think that the reason teenagers are so moody is because they are so sleep-deprived. They just don't get enough sleep. Some schools are experimenting with starting the school day later at 10 a.m, and they are seeing noticeably improved exam results. I think it's something that all schools should be doing on a regular